Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're gonna do something different. That's what I always say when I open these videos, right? So as you guys know, I've had no shortage of companies contacting me from micro-brands to review their products. I've experimented a bit and played around with a couple brands on the channel, and honestly, I kind of was at the point I didn't want to deal with them anymore. They weren't really impressing me that much, with a couple exceptions. So when another company reached out to me wanting me to review their watches, you know, I typically would read it briefly and just blow it off. So I've ignored tons of requests to review micro brands. However, for the first time in a long time, a company actually contacted me that I'd actually heard of before, and I was kind of curious. So the company that contacted me is AVI-8. They're a UK-based company. However, their watches are produced, I believe, in China, Hong Kong, which is totally okay by me. And I'd actually heard of them because a lot of you guys asked me on the channel, believe it or not, you know, where I get some of my clothes from, which is kind of funny. I shop at Nordstrom's a lot, and Nordstrom's happens to carry AVI-8 watches. And I started noticing these things a couple years ago, well actually about a year ago, especially when I was reviewing my friend Mark's Mark 18 series of pilot watches from IWC Schaffhausen, because AVI-8 makes a lot of pilot watches, and some of them are very similar looking to IWC watches. So they kind of caught my eye, and actually playing with them in the store, I thought they were kind of cool. So fast forward to about a month ago or so, AVI-8 reached out to me and said, hey, would I be interested in reviewing one of their pieces? And they wanted me to review a quartz watch. And in short, I said, you know, I really don't have any interest in reviewing a quartz piece, but I know you guys make automatics. Would you guys be open to sending me an automatic instead? I said, you know, the people that watch my channel by and large are probably going to appreciate an automatic watch anyway over quartz for the review. And believe it or not, they actually agreed, and they sent me a watch that I personally would have picked up myself from their website. So it was kind of fortuitous. So let's go ahead and open it. Here's the outer box. Kind of has like a military look spec to it, and being that the watch is kind of, you know, geared after military aviation, I think it's very fitting. It's kind of cool. It's got a little snap here. Open it up. We'll put the watch aside just for a sec. You know, pretty standard stuff you'd expect to get in here. There's a little polishing cloth to get fingerprints off of the crystal. You've got a AVI-8 warranty card. I believe it's good for 2 years. I'm not sure. Mine's not stamped, so I don't probably get that warranty. A little instruction booklet, which we won't read. Some silica, don't eat that. And of course a little AVI-8 hand tag. So this is the model number AV404701. So there's the box out of the way, but let's go ahead and focus on the watch. So I have to say, I like this watch a lot. You know, when I first started noticing AVI-8 watches at Nordstrom's about a year ago, you know, like I said, I was kind of impressed with them. You know, considering their price point, which is a few $100s to, you know, well under $1,000, but you know, a couple hundred more. I think they offer decent bang per buck. And you know, what you're looking at here is a really unique piece in the watch world. Now, before I get too far into this, let me just make this clear. Two things. One, AVI-8 gave me this watch. I did not purchase it, although I am happy to wear it and I definitely like it. And second is, this is not a watch for everybody. Let me step that out right now. If you're looking for a watch that's just for a quick glance to tell time and is going to keep accurate time and you can just kind of keep track during the day, and you basically want it to function like a cell phone on your wrist, this is not the watch for you. This watch is not something you can just glance at immediately and get a sense of what's going on with it. There's a lot of complexity, and it takes a couple seconds of scanning it to realize what all's going on with it and to tell the time. Now, if you're like me and you just happen to just really like watches, and you know, the more complex they are, I mean, it's kind of like engineering pornography. It's almost, you know, it's cool to see what kind of cool things they can come up with. May not be practical, but you just appreciate people doing goofy and unique things with watches, then stay tuned. I think you're gonna like this piece a lot. So this is what they're calling the Hawker Harrier 2. In particular, I believe they're calling this one the Pegasus concept. Now, for those of you that are not military aficionados, and I'm more into commercial aircraft, I'll be honest, than military. But the Hawker Harrier is a really cool aircraft, and it has the capability of vertical takeoff. And this watch is kind of supposed to be an ode to that airplane. If you have any interest or curiosity about it, definitely check it out. It's a cool airplane. And so this is kind of their take on, you know, an ode to that aircraft, and it's supposed to be inspired by, you know, the Pegasus powertrain and also just kind of the airplane itself. And you'll see there's kind of this hidden little right here overlay of the Hawker Harrier itself. So very cool detail. This watch has a lot of cool details going on, and I know you guys are going to ask me what the price point is. It's $460, which I think when we take into consideration this is kind of a bespoke dial arrangement, I think it's a fair price. So what do you have going on? How do you tell time? Well, how you tell time is both simple and complex, depending on how you want to look at it. So it is a traditional three-hand layout, except the hands in this case are rotating disc. And so at center, you have a rotating seconds disc, and it's ticking, clockwise at this point. So it's rolling around there. Up at the top, you have the hour disc, which replaces the hour hand. And as you can see in this case, it's just before 2 o'clock, and then minutes down here, it's ticking at about 56. So the way you'd read this is it's almost 2 o'clock, not quite, so it's actually 1, it's 1:56. Now once this disc reaches 0, this will fully line up with 2 and it'll be 2 o'clock and it'll keep ticking away. So again, center seconds, minutes, hours. There's also some really cool, it's not engine turning, I forget what you call this, some really cool kind of engraving on the metal. This is a multi-layered dial. There's so many different levels to it. There's kind of this overlay, this disc, the center seconds disc is at a different level than the hour disc, which is also, at least visually, at a different level than the minutes track. And the minutes track, I'm assuming, actually runs under where it says AVI-8 on the dial. As somebody who loves engineering to the nth degree, as I already said, I mean, this is kind of engineering pornography for me. I know this isn't the most crazy complexity you could do to a watch, but the fact that somebody designed this multi-layered approach, and there's all these kind of different things going on, and how all these things kind of come together, these different elements, I love what they did with this thing. And the finishing is very nice. There's actually 2 little screws here on the dial as well. It says AVI-8 up here right below what would be 12 o'clock, automatic, Hawker Harrier 2. And let me see if I can get this to focus a little better. And just the detail is really, really well done. And again, just looking at it, the complexity of it is just, it's super, super cool. So again, I'm not going to tell you, if again, I already said a million times, if you're looking for a quick way to tell time, this is going to drive you nuts. But if you just appreciate kind of cool engineering, this is cool. And, I think, kind of reminds me of kind of what 7 Friday has done on some of their watches. They also modify Miyota movements, which this also uses a Miyota. Although this is a lower grade Miyota movement. I'm guessing it's like an 80-15, 80-20 or some derivative of 21 jewel basic movement. But when you consider this watch is $460 versus what a 7 Friday goes for, and what a Swiss watch with this kind of intricacy on the dial would go for, it's a pretty good value. Now, because of all this multi-layering on the dial, the watch is big. So, I mean, case-wise, it's 45, 46 mil, which is totally fine. It's actually my favorite size. But thickness, it's actually 13 millimeters, which is reasonably bulky. And the reason for that is, again, you have, this multi-layer depth going onto the dial. So, I mean, just even up to here, you just have different stages of the dial long before you ever get to the movement. So, very cool. The dots up here at 12 actually light up at night. I've tried to light it up, the luminescence on it, and maybe this is me just being an idiot. Doesn't appear to be terrific. I haven't really been able to read it at night, but again, I mean, who cares? For a watch like this. This is a novelty watch, it's a fun watch, and it's kind of what it's about. Now, as this is a modified Miyota movement, I'll show you the case back in a sec. Some of the functions have been removed. So you might have noticed already there's no date indicators, so when you pull the crown out, to what would be first position to change date, it just freely spins because there's no date disc. You actually pull it out all the way to set the time, and as you can see, it's still ticking. This is not a hacking movement at all, which, based on the movement architecture, that's just the way they are. I have to say, one of my pet peeves about this watch, though, is this crown. So let me start with the good things about that crown first. It's got a nice little bullseye on it. It's kind of cool. It's polished. It's recessed into a brushed surface, so there's some cool contrast, but as you can see, it's basically flush with these crown guards, and to get in there and kind of pop it out, I think is a little finicky. I would have liked to seen a crown that came a little bit out beyond the crown guard so it's easier to grip and just kind of manipulate. It's kind of a pain to pull it out, and this is a hand winding movement, but kind of getting a grip when the crown is so shallow and the crown guards are so shallow, it's kind of hard to grip onto it to kind of hand wind it. So I think ergonomically, I wish the crown was a little bit bigger. That's really about my only pet peeve on this entire watch, believe it or not. Now, again, there's some contrasting surfaces. This is not going to be to the level, guys. If you're coming from like a JDM Seiko, you're not going to see the same, you know, kind of crazy brushed to polished surface going on. But they did a nice basic job, and considering what the watch is inspired by, I think it's more than appropriate. Before I start moving to the watch details, though, this is sapphire crystal, just in case you guys are curious. But you have, you know, there's some brushed, there's some polished, there's some more brushed, some more polished. There's these kind of polished flanks right here that kind of meet between two brush surfaces. I mean, they've done a nice level of detailing. What I would like to see them offer as an option too, since this is such a thick case, I think a case like this would look good on a bracelet. I think when you have a thinner strap, and this is actually a thick strap, but when you have a strap against a thick case, I think the proportions look better, and this is just my bias if it was on a bracelet. So I would definitely like to see them come up with a bracelet at some point, but nothing against it. You know, overall the case is nice. Again, you're just gonna have to put up a 13mm thickness, which I don't mind. I know some of you guys may, and again, that's because you need some space to accommodate this, you know, multi-layer dial going on. Now it comes on a brown leather strap that's got some nice stitching on it. And what's really cool too, and let me pull this out here, is some of the details they do. Let me open this up. So on the strap here, there's actually a red side on it, which is kind of cool. So it's the brown, and it's got this nice contrast red, which I think is a nice little touch. And same thing on this side. I love this cross hatching. It definitely has kind of a utilitarian, military-ish kind of feel to it. And quality strap is actually pretty decent. I like it quite a bit. I gave mine a little bit of patina. I put some like leather balm on it, so it darkened it ever so slightly. It's kind of got like a nice, like a light cigar look to it. I think it looks really cool. I like the strap. It's a little bit thicker. I tend to like thin straps, but it is pretty comfortable when it's wearing in. It is genuine leather, as you can see here, although you can put genuine leather on anything, doesn't mean it is, but this is leather, I can tell, feeling it. You know, it's pretty thickly padded. It does say AVI-8 on this side. You've got a nice little buckle with a tang. Looks nice as well. Different surfaces here, appreciate it. It's a good looking watch, and a good looking strap to accommodate it. And I really like, you know, this brown with the color of the dial. I just think it works really well. You can also get a different colored strap. They also make this in PVD coated dark as well. I don't do PVD, but if that's your thing, they can accommodate you too. And then on the case back, you have the Miyota heart. Any of you guys that are familiar with the Miyota movements, this will look very similar to you, or very familiar to you, because they all look very similar. So they've given it a Pegasus concept blacked out rotor. Typically this would just be a rotor the same color as the back. Sometimes you'll see these Miyota movements with a skeletonized rotor, but I mean, it's just a generic Miyota movement. You know, nicely engraved case back, Hawker Harrier 2, sapphire crystal, 4047, water resistant to 40mm or 50 meters. Don't take this, guys. Don't take this in the water. This crown is not screw down, and I just keep it away from water. Do yourself a favor. This isn't a dive watch. It shouldn't be expected to be treated as one. There's a little bit of AVI-8 over the back of the crystal, and I will not be able to show it on camera, but believe it or not, they used a metal retainer ring in here, which I was pleasantly surprised to see. A lot of watches in this price point have a cheap piece of plastic holding the movement in, and you may be able to see it, not so much here, behind this unidirectional rotor, but there is a metal retainer holding in the movement. So fit and finish on this honestly was a surprise to me pleasantly. I'm not a fan of the blacked out rotor. I would have rather they kind of did an engraved rotor or skeletonized rotor. I think it looks, I don't know, the black printing seems a little out of place with me on the rest of the watch, but quality wise it's good. And overall this is just a really cool, unique piece. And yes, that's a very basic Miyota movement. And I could see why some people might be disappointed with this in this watch. It's because it's the lower end Miyota, but you have to think into consideration, look what they did to it. They took a run-of-the-mill movement and they made it something really cool and really unique. And I really appreciate this watch. And again, if you're okay with it not being the greatest thing at telling time, and that's nothing against accuracy, but again, as a quick look, it may be a little difficult to kind of orientate yourself with the time. Right now, it's, you know, what is it? I can't read under the camera, about 2:04. So, you know, but again, they've got great detailing. It's got some awesome kind of depth going on the dial. There's just so many cool little details. Again, my only real pet peeve is this tiny crown, and I'd like to see a bracelet at some point. But it's a really cool watch. And again, I think for the right buyer, it'd be a really cool piece. And I can tell you, I'm going to be wearing this thing quite a bit. So before I let you guys go, we'll toss this thing on my just under 7-inch wrist, and we'll give it some wrist time. And yes, people always ask me, you know, why do you always put your watch on your right hand? I am left-handed, and this is what left-handed people do. So yes, that, and I like being different, which is not which is true too. But there you go. There it is on the wrist. Get it to focus a little bit better, and yeah. Tell you what, it's definitely got some presence, and people have already been noticing on it on my wrist and been asking questions about it. So there you go, guys. There's the AVI-8 Hawker Harrier 2 Pegasus concept, and it is available on AVI-8's website. And as always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Let's go ahead and we'll jump back. All right, guys, thank you again so much for tuning in, and thank you to AVI-8 for giving me this watch to review. I really appreciate it, and I also appreciate you guys, letting me try out the automatic watch instead of the quartz. This is a watch that I'll wear, and hopefully you guys watching this enjoyed this review too. So yeah, thank you guys so much. As always, let me know what you guys think below. Comment section is there for you guys. I'm never going to restrict it, and your feedback is unfiltered. So let me know what you guys think. Is this something you consider purchasing? What do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? Would you take this over a comparable Seiko Sumo? I mean, well, that's not really a comparable watch, but you know what I mean, guys. So as always, hope you guys are doing well. If you haven't already, somewhere around me, please subscribe, and I'll go ahead and catch you guys on the next video. Hope you guys are having an awesome day, and take care.